evening, followers. Good evening, people. Good evening once again on a Monday, 8 o'clock meeting. Um, Good evening, everybody. Good evening once again. Today to the leadership stage. Today to the leadership stage in Corona pandemic era. Quite challenging. Um, Thank you for joining me and good evening. We will be waiting a couple more minutes to start in time. Uh, it's so lovely to see how people click and the number increases, and I see an eye there, and it's going from 12 and up, and that makes me very happy because I like to interact with you guys. Here on the mountains of Galilee in Israel, it's raining endlessly, endlessly, and finally we temperature went down, and we are facing winter. Winter plus Corona is solitude. Solitude causes internal leadership. We're going to discuss this evening. So you can have some warm chai for the throat and for the spirit. I'm so glad you are here. Um, and we will be challenging the issue and the theme of leadership in a corona pandemic era. Please, what makes this interaction lively and wonderful is when you dialogue with me. Please send questions about your understanding about leadership. Send questions and comments about my presentation of the archetypal images that, when they're put together, create the leadership characteristic and the leader. I very much recommend to you to see the amazing series of the Danish Prime Minister lady, who is a great example in Netflix. So I will mention her several times, and I am a great follower of her. Um, and I do want to mention now, and also by the end of this meeting, that our early bird price, which is 25% reduction of our online Jungian coaching school, which starts in a month's time, will end tomorrow. And those of you who happen to show interest or wish to join us for a wonderful 6 months quest, um, sign up for the program and earn the early bird prize. So, good evening for those who join us in, and you're most welcome for our live Facebook stream under the subject of leadership in Corona pandemic era. I would like to start with a personal confession. I sense a very high amplitude. Okay, my horloge is counting 8. We will respect the ancient clock. My grandfather's clock was too big for a shelf, so it stood 90 years on the floor. And I want to confess that during this corona, I'm sensing a tremendous amplitude of solitude. On the one hand, this conflict is saving me because when I'm alone, I'm not exposed to, or I reduce my exposure to the infection of the pandemic. But on the other hand, I'm challenged with what my colleague is calling internal leadership. Internal leadership. But internal leadership is not a function of loneliness and loneliness and solitude. internal leadership is the nuclear on which a real solid leadership is built upon. So, if in the previous lectures I was talking about the ego, which is our functionings every day, all what we do, and the internal self in the unconscious is the internal leader. We are speaking here about a dialogue between one and his self. And what I want to lecture about today is how do we stimulate, nurture, and grow our internal leader. Obviously, when our internal leader is developed, it is seen, displayed, and affected on the outward, and then people greet you, obey to you, consult with you, respond to you, gather after you. And modestly, I could say that I'm a moderate leader. I've been running in the last 10 years 9 programs in Europe. I am a quite popular and loved lecturer in Israeli universities. And I think that I raised up quite a large community of Jungian coaches and expressive art therapists. Um, which arrives to 1,000 people. And the question is, what creates me, with all the modesty, to become a moderate leader? And this I would like to share with you. And I would also like to share with you my knowledge about the leadership cards that are part of our Jungian coaching kit for ladies and for gentlemen. I will go through those characteristics, not so much on the technical aspect, but more on the content, because these archetypes create the seeds or the minerals that the psychic minerals that back you when you think about leadership. Couple years ago, I was studying Sufism. It was as a result of my love to Turkey. I started working in Turkey 10 years ago. I was exposed to Rumi, to Mavlana. I was born same day, 18th of December, and I showed curiosity and I took 6 months studies um, in Tel Aviv, and I studied Sufism. And the lecturer, when she explained to us about Sufism, she mentioned two jihad. She said there is a small jihad and a big jihad. And the small jihad is spreading Islam in the world. First, they did it by wars and then by preaching. And this is the small jihad. The big jihad is diminishing the ego and working with your internal leader. So, when we speak about leadership, we want to look inwards, because the moment you are cohesive with yourself, the moment you can be by yourself and deal with decisions that by the end of the day you have to make up what you decide, you become naturally a leader. So it's about managing your internal theater. And when you speak about internal leadership, we speak about aloneness. This is a concept that was coined by Christopher Bolas, who is a psychoanalyst. Essential aloneness, I will explain in a moment, and connectedness to the anima for men and to the femininity for a woman. Let me start with the aloneness, and then we will go into the anima and femininity, and then we will go into the father and the ego, and then we will go into the archetypes of the leadership. The beginning, I will do it quite condensed, fast, and efficiently. Being by yourself does not necessarily mean that you are lonely. So, for this, Bolas created the concept of aloneness. It is an aesthetic ability to be by yourself. The corona imposes us to be by ourselves, even if we are in a very crowded house with many children or relatives. If we are condemned to stay for a long time with the same people, we think inside ourselves. And there we have a choice. We can be very miserable, or we can find the aesthetics of the aloneness. If you look at movies and you see leaders in movies, take starting with the Bible with Moses as a leader, he is by himself by the end of the day. So, one preliminary condition in order to be a leader is not to be popular, is not to interact externally, but to condense your internal core. And this requires a lot of self centering and self discipline. What has this to do with femininity and anima for men? The inward is an internal container, and an internal container, like a uterus, is a place where you can nurture yourself, where you can organize yourself, and where you can create by yourself. For this, you must have feminine qualities. So, in a sense, if you think about big leaders, Bismarck or Alexander of Macedonia, or any leaders that you can think of, the question is, can they stay by themselves? Heinz Kohut, who developed the self psychology, in one of his books, The Reconstruction of the Self, mentions Bismarck, that was the German ruler of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And they say that he couldn't get asleep at night, and he had his driver to sit in his room until he fell asleep. So you have, on the one hand, an international fighter and leader, but when he needs to surrender to himself, he needs somebody to be in his presence. Code called it a self object, an actual self object to reflect to his internal existence. My friends, my fellows, 55 people are listening to me. I'm very humbly thank you for joining in, and please interact with me, post questions, because I want to share with you the next step, and this is the ability of the leader to act. So, on the one hand, paradoxically, you need to have a developed internal container, a feminine quality, but on the other hand, you have to act, to be self disciplined, to have a strong ego, and to be able physically and mentally to act and execute your decisions. Unfortunately, I live in a country where we have a leader that is not acting like this, and we are going in 2 years into the fourth election because I don't know what happens in his internal processes. Maybe he lacks them. Maybe. Now, I would like to go through the archetypes that create leadership, explain to you what are the qualities and how you can connect to them. Let me just ask my dear colleague Danny whether we have some questions. Nada. People are curious to listen, so I give you my wisdom. I had a dilemma. Should I use the feminine cards or should I use the masculine cards, which are the same, although only the pictures are different? And because I think that most of the audience is uh, feminine ladies, I mean, by gender, so I will use the feminine cards, but sometimes because of popular pictures, I will use also the other pictures. So the first archetype is the innocent. And the innocent says, I'm loyal, I follow the rules and I'm open and honest. Because the leader needs to survive with permanent interaction with people in the surrounding, it is very difficult to have integrity. The innocent has integrity. The shadow of the innocence is the naivete. The naivete. She is listening to a wrong advice and risks her future. So you have to be naive, but at the same time, not stupid. The innocent follows the rules. You might need to be a trickster too, but in order to balance your trickism, your manipulation, you have to stick to the innocent. So you should ask yourself, how connected are you to the innocent? Now, we have a big dilemma about this in the corona because we are not allowed to go. We are in lockdown. We have to wear a mask. And the question is, does a leader follow the rules? You have the example of Trump, that he was not innocent. He didn't go, but Biden is using the mask. Trump was opposing the mask, and this is a good example that you, on the one hand, you can be a great leader, but you have to follow the rules. I think that Putin doesn't follow the rule and poisons people. And write to me, please, a name of a leader that you would like me to analyze his archetypes. This would be interaction that I would really appreciate. If you send me a leader that I know, and then we will sort out which leadership traits that person owns. Another very, very important asset that a leader needs to lean on is to be wise. And wisdom has to do with knowledge. I have broad knowledge. I possess expert knowledge in many areas. I strive for quality results and I can create and lead learning. How much do you spend during the corona to expand your knowledge? How much do you learn these days? Do you see the correlation between knowledge and leadership? Do you see, but when I say leadership, you think about politicians. They don't necessarily have wisdom. And unfortunately, our political leaders are either army generals or business people, and they don't necessarily own wisdom. Unfortunately, you can differentiate. A reliable leader has knowledge. And this is a very strong criteria. When you see a leader that owns knowledge, that is connected to the collective unconscious of his people, that knows, and Brigitta Newburg in this series in Netflix, Borges, is a fantastic example for a lady who has wisdom and looks for wisdom. When you see the series in Netflix, The Crown, about Queen Elizabeth, she became queen so early and she didn't have academic studies. So she took a mentor and she tells him, I know so very little. So the other archetype that you want to think about is how wise you are and do you use this corona period in order to extend your studies. Sorry for marketing, but I think that taking the Jungian coaching school online for 6 months to gain the Jungian knowledge and apply it in business life, apply it in leadership is a good choice for using the wise. And correlates to the wise comes the archetype of the explorer. When you're a leader, by the end of the day, you decide, you execute, You take responsibility for the outcomes. But does a leader give himself or herself the time to explore? What says the explorer? I'm independent. I'm a self starter. I'm a pioneer, and I believe in authenticity. It resonates like a business person. But if you want to be an authentic leader, you have to be able to guard your curiosity. So, on the one hand, you are strong, but on the other hand, you are not rejecting consultants, and the guy who is the trickster in the series Borges is a Caspar, who is a spin doctor. We will discuss the spin doctor as a trickster leader that is initiating processes. So we have some questions. I will just finish with we just finished the archetypes of the learning process, and we will go into the archetypes of the people, the HRs, and the first archetype for a leader is to be able to be a lover, not a seductive lover, a nurturing lover. A nurturing lover, if you want to lead, see the people or the cause that you are leading. The cause means that love your ideology, believe in your ideology, and see if this ideology has the following traits. The lover says, I am emotionally intelligent. I have personal attractiveness. I possess a sense of community. I make consensual decisions. Now, speaking about persona, how a leader presents himself. Mahatma Gandhi could go with sandals. Indira Gandhi could wear a sari. Albert Schweitzer was a modest person in Africa. But in the modern, postmodern era, we see leaders that they wear persona of suits with red ties, arrogant. People don't, ordinary people don't wear suits on a daily basis unless they are high-tech business, and also high-tech people don't wear suits to their laboratory and startups. So imagine about this persona that our leaders, our political leaders, hide behind fancy suits. Has this to do with loving? As you see, there are contradictions in within the archetypes. Uh, and the question is, how do you, by the end of the day, balance the contradicting traits? But to remind you, as a Jungian coach, contradicting traits are not necessarily opposing, they are complementary. You can be at the same time wise and a lover, innocent and a lover. And I will make a pause after I will speak about how essential for a leader is to be a trickster. When people think about a trickster, they think about the manipulator from a negative point of view, the shadow of the trickster, this one, that is doing evil things and hiding behind the mask. But I'm speaking about the positive trickster. Did it ever occur to you? It says, I find ways to make work fun. I am full of playful inventiveness. I have good sense of humor, seeing clever ways around obstacles. This is a keyword. Seeing clever ways around obstacles. So Leadership requires flexibility. If you are rigid, you distant far away from the trickster. If you allow yourself to become the child, if you allow yourself to regress, if you allow yourself to be dependent on others, paradoxically, you are a positive trickster. You can use your helpers, rest a bit, see what happens, and then return to your integrity. Many years ago, we had a musical in Israel that was called King Solomon the King and Shalmai the Shoemaker. And they looked alike. They were born like twins. And because King Solomon was a very wise leader who built the first holy temple, in this musical, he's changing roles. He wants to be in the marketplace and he brings Shalmai. The Shalmai has a connotation in Hebrew with Shlumiel, which is the fool. So he's changing roles with the fool. The fool becomes the king, and the king becomes the shoemaker. This is the power of the trickster in leadership, that you can really go and become every person. And from the position, from the people that you lead, from being an ordinary soldier, you can understand the strategic, the tactics of the leader. Danny, do we have any news? Yeah, we do have. How do you avoid balance efficiently? How do you avoid balance efficiently? Recognize, reveal naivete, intuitive, transform it into strengths. How do you avoid balance efficiently? Recognize, reveal naivete, intuitive, transform into strengths. Okay, so my friend from Patras, Kalispera Sas, you, as I know you, you come with a predisposition of innocence. And maybe when the leader comes innocently, he's percepted, he's percepted as naive. So, in order not to fall into being abused, you must connect also to your trickster. You must practice in manipulating. One of the trickster comments is let me sleep on it. Don't respond immediately. The naive responds immediately. The clever one says, let me think about it. The clever one always brings the question to the other. You ask me, what is your opinion? Bring it to the other's field. So the security of the naive and the innocent, which is very, very positive predisposition, is guarded by the trickster. Thank you for your question. And here comes another comment. Somebody says, yeah, how do you avoid balance? Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is Yanya, I know her. But this is the same question that came. Yeah. Somebody asked about our prime minister and somebody about Bill Gates. I do you think okay. And okay, good. So soon we will speak about our prime minister. I don't want to fall into this trap because he is a huge psychopath. And this is a preliminary. Let's speak about psychopaths for a moment. In my Jungian introduction to Jungian coaching book, when I relate in the chapter of trickster, I bring researches from recent researches that say that about 20% of the leaders and executives in the high tech world have the traits of psychopaths. These people are interested in their promotion. They are interested only in promoting themselves. They are very self centered, but at the same time, they are very charismatic. They are very abrupt. They are very handsome, they are very manipulative, and they know the expected language. But it's even worse. The HRs of the companies, not being aware, got the profile to look for executives that fit the profile of the psychopath. So the psychopath is charming, the psychopath has a fantastic persona, must be wise and clever, but not lover, not innocent, and not decent. Very self centered, and knows how to collaborate for the sake of promoting either himself or his team or his product. So the question is it legitimate to be a trickster and at the same time to be a leader? And when we look at Churchill, for example, he was a real trickster. And but at the end of the day, is the ability of the trickster leader to acknowledge that he is a manipulator or that he is manipulating. Because the psychopaths are not aware that they are manipulating, they are built from within. And this is the differential difference between the psychopath who does it without being able to have a perspective and the manipulator who decides that now I will use tactics that will adhere me, push me forward. Now, I think that Bill Gates, if I'm not mistaken, is a leader that comes out of wisdom. Had he not invented what he invented, he wouldn't have created the new culture that we are living now as a result of his initiatives. And this is a leader of wisdom. So, this is a chance to really tell you that there are several categories of leadership. There is leadership of physics, like Schwarzenegger or Olympic champion. There is a leadership of culture. There is a leadership of politics. There is a leadership of religion. There is a leadership of army. And for each category of leadership, different archetypal traits are required. Shall we relate to other questions? Ah, bravo. So this is a question by Seren. When are what are the difference between psychopath leader and narcissistic one? Aha. In order to diagnose a narcissistic leader, we have to define what is narcissism. So let's define narcissism, then we will sample it with leaders. A narcissist is a person that does not have a cohesive self. And by this, you understand already that this is a pain in the ass if you have a leader who is narcissist, because what is driving the narcissist is acknowledgement, and this is opposing everything that I'm lecturing about the internal leader. The narcissist needs to be mirrored. He will use communication. He will invest a lot of efforts and money in his persona, and it will be very, very influential on him what people think about him, who is standing behind him, and how handsome or beautiful he or she is. So if you go to Bibi, he is dyeing his hair in silver, and he has a whole bunch of media that are working around him, and there is a lot of money and knowledge and technology that is supporting him on the narcissistic need to be loved and to be admired and to be worshipped. And we see this uh, in Mao, or we and leaders that are there are leaders that are not narcissists, but they use narcissism in in fascist regimes. the narcissistic phenomena around the leader is not necessarily deriving from the need of the leader, but as a vehicle or a system or a technique to influence people. So, and this why? Because people need narcissism to identify with. They need to identify with power. They need to identify with beauty. They need to identify with prestige. And these are the camouflage of the narcissist. Psychopath is quite dangerous. And this is why now, after what happened in the Capitol, they are trying to prevent Trump from going back into politics because they are, and they proclaimed it, even the Republicans, that they are afraid that his testing of reality and uh, checking what's being aware to his acts are in dangers. And in Jungian terms, it means that the psychopath is a leader that falls into shadows. And this is why he's not, or she is not aware of that they fall into the shadow. Do we go on with the archetypes? No, we have another question. Questions prior to knowledge. So, Che is asking about Erdogan. Few people, the Turks, the liberated, wise, advanced Turks are asking about Erdogan. I don't know too much about Erdogan. I have to tell you that I read 3 biographies of Ataturk. And if you had asked me about Ataturk, I would be more acquainted with. But I think that it would have been interesting to analyze Erdogan in different phases in his life. The guy is coming from a very poor or a proletariat family, and they reached the palace in Ankara. I don't know if he was as religious as he is claiming now when he started his career. I think that with all what you detest, if you sort out the archetypes of leadership, he has not few. And let me advance with the archetypes because I think Erdogan will go with the ruler, Erdogan will go with the trickster, and Erdogan will go with the hero because he sees his target and he doesn't care about the prize. I think that the corona confused him a bit. I think that let's talk about it slowly. If your power as a leader is the mass and corona prohibits you from pushing people outside for manifestations, if the corona is forcing people to be closed in their homes, and the square and the arena and Gazi and all the white places, Syntagma or any public area is now forbidden, leaders shrink, and they shrink only to the ability to appear on our TV screen. So I think Erdogan is in a big panic now because the way that he influenced is now frozen by approaching the people and showing the mass of people that really follow him. And this is very interesting whether alternative leaders will take the advantage of the Zoom and the Facebook and will use leadership through the media, as Trump, we have to admit, did very successfully with the Twitter. Uh, Another question comes from, okay, let's go on with the leadership cards and we will go into the hero. So speaking about Erdogan, Sabiha Gökçe, this is not her, but it a bit associated to a lady who is a pilot. And what is the hero and how the hero connects to the leadership? Hero in Jungian concept is a person that not only moves out from comfort zone. This is the easy side of the hero, to step out from comfort zone. The hero is the one that is actualizing unconscious ideas. So it has to do with ideology. A real hero is somebody who has ideology and fights out to actualize his ideology, his ideas, his innovations. Unfortunately, in Israel, we don't see heroes. Although all our politicians are ex generals from the army, they are not leaders by the Jungian concept, because they don't come with original ideas and try to persuade the public to believe in them. They sell popular ideas that are repeated themselves. What says the hero? The hero says, I create a team spirit feeling. I consistently come through challenge. I do achieve goals. I do possess the toughness to get the job done. But all this acting needs to be in the service of an internal idea. When I invented Jungian coaching 6 years ago, it came from an inspiration from inside. I'm fighting even this moment to spread the knowledge, to widen the belief that a Jungian coaching method is very efficient, not only in achieving goals, but also in doing good for people because they are connected inwards. Does your computer tell me we have another? Yeah, another is by Postian. And what do you say about spiritual growth in correlation with leadership? I believe it's necessary for the leaders and to be open. Absolutely, I agree with you. And this has to do with spirituality that comes from in within, that comes from within. Which one is the archetype that will connect the spiritual? Is the innocent. Hold on a second. I want to show you the picture of the innocent that is the Mahatma Gandhi, who was also a very spiritual leader. Let's see if I sort this out. I was going to play up. So you see the wise. I'm good in fostering continuous learning, putting evaluation processes in place, implementing research and development, self-researching, and analyzing complex issues. So yes, a spiritual leader, but let's face it, a spiritual leader leans on his wisdom, patience, and determination. So we are, by the end of the day, when we speak about internal leadership, we speak about spirituality, and the real challenge is, how do you expand this knowledge? How do you influence people? And I think the Dalai Lama is a good example for that. And he will be the wise, and the innocent will be the Dalai Lama. Now we have another. Okay, I read here that people are interested in transforming the lecture or moving into dilemmas in team leadership and corporation leadership in the corporate. Here comes the issue of win-win situation, and the Jungian concept is the conjunctio. The conjunctio is this archetype that is not leaning on opposition, diversity, and spreading, but finding collaboration, finding the win win situation, being in accordance with embracing the paradoxes, in embracing opposing motivations. And for this, you need to develop the skill of mediation and negotiation. Now, mediation and negotiation belong to the masculine domain, to the word, to trust a process that is built on ability to bring your ideas, not to negate them, not to diminish the other, but to try to embrace what is threatening you, to embrace the one that seems that is your shadow, that is threatening on your existence. So when you are a leader in leadership, in team leadership, you want to develop a conversation that is a process of one bringing all the opinion and the ideas, evaluating them, processing them, and arrive to the conclusion that serves the person of the team. In our Jungian coaching school, we have a module, the last module, where we make a simulation of a teamwork according to the MBTI, and it's a very humorous process because according to the MBTI, the assessment tool of preferences, people see that by the end of the day, people are different. Some people are thinkers, some people are feelers, some people are intuitive, some people are sensational, some people are introverts, some are extroverts. People are very diverse and they process differently and they have different needs. And what you see is that by the end of the day, the team can benefit if you encourage diversity. But this is very challenging because we want to be under control. So a leader in team is a facilitator. A leader in team is not self-centered, is not the one that is imposing his ideas, is the one that is enabling others to bring their ideas. In Jungian coaching, we also developed in our fifth module an observation form to see from which archetypes the executives function by nature. Some people are rulers by nature, some people are wise by nature, some people are explorers by nature, some people are lovers by nature, and most people function from their natural assets. Through our observation form, we see what is the dominant trait, archetypal trait that the person is functioning from, and what is the inferior function. And by doing executive coaching, we are empowering the submissive, underdeveloped, inferior archetypal potentials. And it's miraculous how, when an executive is trained to work with his inferior leader traits, when he or she comes back to the team, suddenly he collaborates in a different way and the process runs towards a very positive outcome. We checked it again and again, and it's really impressive. Uh, I think I want to start landing, unless you will bombard me with more questions. And I want to, for those who joined me not in the very beginning, I want, with your permission, to repeat about the essential need to surrender, to regress into your internal coach and internal leader. So let me just repeat, when we are so lonely and when we are by ourselves, we find a cradle for internal leadership. And I started with a confession that I find it very, very difficult to be by myself, but I self manage myself. And this self discipline I think, is the beginning of decent leadership. To keep hygiene, to be clean, to nurture your internal and external environment, to cook for yourself, to communicate with people and to enable them to see themselves. This is leadership, not to be narcissist. To embrace your aloneness and at the same time nurture your femininity if you're a woman or your anima. To do acts that are in process. To acquire wisdom and knowledge this time. To extend your knowledge. A leader is a known, is a person who learns and extends his intellectual assets. And to understand that by the end of the day, leadership starts from within. Yes, sir. Let me say again that our Jungian coaching school online starts on February 12th. We arranged it so that people in the Pacific area can join us because we will start in the afternoon. The early bird price, which is 25% reduction, ends by tomorrow. So surprise us and step up on this wonderful train. It will be 6 months, 6 weekends online, and you will gain an ACSTH um, Jungian coach certificate that is accredited by the International Coaching Federation, with which you will be able to apply, as I do nowadays, for the accredited coach ACC. So join us and contact us personally. I will write you a mail. I will see you on Zoom. We will. You can pay still in payments and give yourself a wonderful gift for a new year. And you can see our program on our site, Jungian Coaching School, in one word, jungiancoachingschool.com. You can also purchase the Jungian Coaching Kit, and on the side there is a wonderful instructions how to use them, a virtual brochure that we just uploaded today. You get it online, you get it to your personal post in your hometown at home, and please step on the train. It's been a pleasure to have you. I really admire you. 60 people from first moment follow my ideas. I hope I stimulate you. Become leaders. A leader is not a pompous, grandiose, muscled, loud person, is a modest, condensed, integrated, skilled, educated, spiritual person. So it's not that, it's that. Good evening, everybody, and thank you humbly for joining our Facebook Live. And Pasito,